My name's Francis Graffeo. You can call me Frank.
My name is Don Townsend.
My name's Marie Butler.
I'm Daniel Berry.
I'm Mark Rucker.
I'm Sadie Rucker, his wife.
I'm Alan Henderson. I am the Executive Director of the National Association of Teachers of Singing.
I was the General Director and Conductor of Knoxville Opera from 2000 to 2005.
My role here is production management. I've been here for 46 seasons.
I'm the finance and ticket manager with Knoxville Opera.
For about 27 years, I was the morning man on WUOT radio.
I had never worked in an opera company that was this old. And I remember when I arrived, there was such a history there, and all of the history of Knoxville Opera was imbued with Robert Lyall when I arrived.
Robert was a young, upcoming conductor who had actually formed his own orchestra.
He had such a presence about him.
He was just a very striking-looking man, a certain amount of charisma to him, which always helps when you're in an orchestra pit or when you're trying to get people's attention.
He had expectations, and those of us who were my age at that time, of course, and aspiring singers, obviously we wanted to meet his expectations always.
I sang for him in an audition. One of the things that I say about Robert is when you sang with him, you always got the feeling that he knew where you were going. He knew what you needed.
Well, I never met Robert Lyall, but the funny thing about conductors is you never work together. You're each working with orchestras elsewhere.
The first show that he did after I moved here, he did Cavalleria Rusticana and Mariachi in the fall of 1983, and I went to see the production. And I was impressed, first of all, at how good a production that a town the size of Knoxville could put on. It was a very professionally done thing. And I was impressed with the level of the cast that he brought in.
He would always say, there are no small, insignificant roles in opera.
He would take chances with these young singers. He had a great ear for voices. He was one of the few opera people that actually would allow singers to come in who didn't have representation.
Well, I think Robert Lyall was a born conductor. Even when he was young, he just had this charisma about him.
You call people in his position maestro, he's the conductor. You knew that he knew exactly what he was doing and was very knowledgeable.
I feel like, he really had a vision for what the opera company and what opera could do in a city like Knoxville.
When I arrived in Knoxville and saw the kind of work that Robert had done, commissioning new pieces, performing risky repertoire, I knew about the commitment he had, and living up to that was a challenge, but I think everyone was on my side. It was like, we wanted to be as good as Robert Lyall was doing it, Frank. So yes, I will do my very best.
One of the biggest things I think about him, he saved a lot of companies, including during the very rough times of COVID.
And during, after Katrina in New Orleans, oh my God. I mean, he literally just put that company on his shoulders and saved it.
The repertoire on this concert was designed with Robert Lyall in mind. He's conducted every note on this concert many times, and opera has such a strong connection to the past. The life that we give the score, there's a parallel there with Robert by us performing this music that was so dear to him and that he was so skilled at interpreting.
The opera world has changed a lot in 40 years. Opera companies like Knoxville Opera expanded incredibly over this country.
The music is so good for people. It's good for children, it's good for adults, it's good for everybody. One of the first things I said when I was meeting with the team as we were putting this concert together is, want to be sure that people, at least once in the evening, go, wow.
I think the greatest thing about Robert Lyall was, even though he was a great man and a great conductor, he was a very talented musician. But at the same time, he was a very compassionate person.
Anybody that worked with him really respected him, number one, and loved he was so positive. When people were having trouble, he did help them. And if someone was having difficulty, he always was very patient with them.
He was able to communicate that he cared about you, and he cared about the people that he was working with. You know, music was his life. Conducting was his life.